Oh yeah, the human brain it's something they will say this portion does this portion does this. Once it's wired, it stays wired, and now they're seeing that that's not the way it works. And people know when they are ready to pass. They will tell you that, there's a term, impending feeling of doom, that we use, and they know. They will tell you, I'm going to die. And sometimes it's just the shock of the trauma or whatever, but frequently they know that it's that bad, and they know that they will not survive.
I always thought my dad, wanted to make peace with me because we had a falling out big time, and I'm not going to go into that, before he was put in the nursing home. I came from a very loving family, but me and my father, because of a marriage at that time, or prior marriage, had a major falling out. And it was like something in him, he wanted to make peace. But with Alzheimer's, he went for a stage of almost a year. Every word was a swear word before he lost everything. And it amazed me, how sharp he was. But what really startled me when he started talking about my mom and, my uncles and all that stuff, and was telling me what the afterlife was kind of like. And it's just like, wow, was he imagining it? Or was he actually, did he actually talk to my mom and stuff like that? Something snapped him out of something like a totally, basically, being a walking dead to, at least for a short period of time, normal.
Right, and I would love to know what caused that to happen. That is just so unusual to have that happen.
That's what the doctor said, and when they did the autopsy, they again, I asked the doctors, I said, how was this possible? And they said it wasn't possible. They said they never saw anything at that time frame. They said they never seen a case like where somebody came out and was totally coherent with that much brain damage and in that condition. So that just right there made me think, that something is more. I think with our brain, our thoughts, or is it transferred to a different part of your brain where like a mirror, or is it maybe stored somewhere else? Maybe I don't know.
And that's one thing that they're starting to learn. People who have had severe traumatic brain injuries, losing large parts of their brain, they are learning to do things in other sections of the brain to compensate. And there's no good explanation for it, because the part that's missing may be the part that should be controlling motor function, and yet they're walking, they're talking, they're functioning, and they shouldn't, according to science and the mapping of the brain. There's just so many questions that haven't been answered.
Well, back maybe 20-some years ago, maybe it was 25 years ago, there was a man, that I guess ended up in the hospital for something, right? He was married. He held a professional job, right? And they did some CAT scans or whatever they did, of his brain. And they came back and said he didn't have a brain, that he only had a brain stem. Now, here's somebody that only has a brain stem, which only basically makes you function for breathing, and that's about it. Was able to hold a job, get married, and have a family. So, I don't know. It just makes you wonder, like same way like a guy who's a carpenter, I guess, gets a nail spiked through his brain,
Exactly. And those are things that modern medicine and science just cannot explain.
No, and that okay, so they can't explain it. So that the same way you get these people who try to debunk the paranormal. Okay, again, if you've seen it, you have a different view. I guess if you've gone for your whole life and you've never seen anything that was strange, you're going to look at it and you're going to go, "Oh, it's a load of you know what." That's all I can say.
Right, and I guess I'm just the opposite. I grew up with it. I mean, since I was born, it's been a part of my life. So I don't think anything about it. I don't even blink when something happens. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just like things like reincarnation, like little kids, thinking that they were, or saying they were somebody else. And, I had on my show also back 6 months ago, a retired detective with a large police department. He investigated homicides and stuff like that and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, when he retired, he decided he was going to take something he's always interested in, and that was hypnotist, being a hypnotist and going through and do past regressions. And he said that he regressed some people. And I asked him, I said, okay, and he goes, yeah, some of these people had like 4 or 5 lives. And I said, okay, did you ever investigate any of them? And he came back and he said, yeah, I investigated a few of them. And everything that they told me, I found the exact thing, when I went and did some research. How had they known it? They couldn't have.
Yeah, I personally would love to have somebody try to do a past life regression on me. When I was little, I was maybe 3. We had a stray cat show up as a tortoiseshell. And for some reason, this cat was terrified of everyone except me. And I named it, I believe, Shanksa.
Okay.
Which is, exactly. For a 3-year-old to come up with this word, where does that come from? And my mother was watching a show a few months later, and turned out that was like ancient Egyptian for tortoiseshell cat.
Oh, wow.
And that's exactly. It's like, oh, well, that's different. Okay.
Well,
and
go ahead.
I used to carry this cat around, and no one could even get close to it, but I'd carry it around and, like it was the house cat.
Well, it's also interesting. Young kids from age like 3 years old to 7 years old are more susceptible to, like, having past lives and remembering things. I mean, there's so many cases that has been very well documented, like one that happened in the Middle East where this young boy went to his parents and said, there is a guy in the village that killed me in my prior life. And I guess the guy was still living, okay, that supposedly killed him in his prior life. And, he kept saying it to his parents, and his parents, kind of like pushed it off. Finally, the parents went to the law enforcement, right? So the kid actually took him to a place. They dug it up, and there was the remains of a little boy that was bludgeoned, in the head, with a big hole in the head, skull. And the guy that he said killed him, at first he denied it. Then he confessed that he killed that little boy. Now, how had this little boy known that this guy killed another little boy, buried him, and knew how he got killed, and knew that the guy, lived in the village? I mean, it's and who he was.
Right. And I read about that one, and when you read the full story on it, it's just, there's no possible way it could be just some coincidence that this little boy knew everything about it. There's none.
No, there isn't. And that's why I'm saying, so, the people who try to debunk, UFOs or Bigfoot or anything in the paranormal, I mean, it's just too many things out there that we can't explain. It's just too many. Like you have things that you said it's happened in your mom's property, things that like your door slamming and opening and closing. It's just so many weird things out there, that, unless somebody has gone through any of those, then, when you start talking paranormal, some people will label you as, a crackpot. But, one day maybe something's going to happen to that person, and then, they might think things a little bit different.
Exactly. And I hope that at some point they recognize, there is something. I'm, how do I put this? I'm an open-minded skeptic. I always try to look for a logical explanation first, but sometimes there isn't one. And then when you move on to the more illogical answers of paranormal, ghosts, whatever, you get labeled as crazy.
I know.
It's either science, you have to have scientific proof, or you're crazy. And that hopefully will end.
Well, I mean, look at you. Somebody opening and closing the refrigerator. You can't blame that on the house settling, can you?
No, and the bedroom door opening and closing. I mean, if it just popped open, okay, it wasn't latched. But having it close, there was a little more to that than just a door not being latched correctly.
Well, hey, Liz, our time is almost up again. Tell everybody your website and, repeat it twice. I mean, for people can write it down. And the name of the book they can buy now on Amazon. I mean, you're here, to talk to me, but, you've been a great guest, and we need to, push your book.
Okay. The book title is 51, The Beginning, and my website is lizreaderbooks.com. The book can be found on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble Online, Google, iTunes, Kobo, BookBub, and I'm sure there's several others that I'm not thinking of. But again, the website is lizreaderbooks.com.
Okay. Hey, people, go out there and, check it out. She's been a great guest. I think the book would be a great read and very interesting. Hey, Liz, I really enjoyed you being on the show. And again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been a great support for my show with, posting up on Facebook. And I really appreciate that. And, I want to get my name out there as much as possible. And you've been really great at that.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, maybe we'll get you back on.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
Yeah, and maybe we can get you back on in a couple months again, and we can talk about one of your other books.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, you take care.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, kid. Now, Bigfoot, if you really think about it, if you go out in the woods, way out there somewhere, one thing, don't carry, bear spray or anything like that. And I hate to say it, don't carry a .22. That's not going to do you any good. Make sure you got some type of weapon and make sure you can run. Don't be out there in a cane, out in the woods looking for a Bigfoot, and you're not going to find one. If you're out there with some of these ghost hunter or not, the Bigfoot, shows on TV and cable, if you got a crew with you of 4 or 5 or 13 people with you, you're not going to find a Bigfoot. If you are going to find a Bigfoot, it's going to be sometime when you're out there hunting or you're out there by yourself and just, enjoying nature. Are you going to be able to take a picture of it? I doubt it. You're going to probably try, to run away, as fast as you humanly can. So everybody, you take care. And, we'll talk to you again on our Sunday show. It's on between 7 and 8 with my guest, Ryan Eaton. So everybody, take care.